You're listening to the Love Your Neighbor podcast.
Well, thanks for joining us on the Links podcast. My name is John, and we have a very special guest. Randy Nelson is joining us today. And Randy, thanks for coming out and being part. I have to be honest. I'm a big fan of Coach Christensen, and
I am too.
He came out and he talked about you. I know there was an article on you in the paper, and when I asked him, I said, "Who do we need to have on this podcast?" He was the first one that he mentioned. He's like, "We got to have you on this podcast." So, Randy, for those of you that don't know you, which is probably quite a few people, because the people that are listening to this, most of them are they've either been here forever,
Yeah.
or they just moved here,
Yeah.
and they don't know their neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
And so the whole purpose of this podcast is just to really help us get to know our neighbors. And so this is kind of a one-way. This will be kind of a one-way. You're telling your story, but I know there'll be people that'll see you maybe bouncing down the road in your tractor or something. And like, "Oh, here goes Randy." I saw you the other day with the tractor.
Oh, yeah.
Heading down the road. So
I'm the farmer in the neighborhood. So
it is good to have a farmer in the neighborhood.
yeah. We can do a lot of things for the neighbors.
So, well, tell us a little bit about Randy. Tell us about your story, your family, and kind of how you got to be in Brandon and why you've chosen to stay in Brandon.
Yeah. I grew up in the Renner area until 1965. Went to my education at that time was through a little school called Evergreen, which was 2-room school.
Okay.
Total of 50 kids, 5 kids in my class, all 8 grades. And I was there until I started high school in 65. We had the choice of going to Brandon or several other places, but we wanted to go to Brandon. So that's when I started my high school career at Brandon. So
you went to a 2-room school through 8th grade?
Yep.
Wow.
All 8 grades there, 2 teachers.
2 teachers.
2
wow.
rooms. Wow. It was interesting, but played teener ball and stuff in Renner, and that was a good experience. Renner had good teams at that time and stuff, and started high school in Brandon. That was the first true organized sports that I participated in. Love football.
Yeah.
They were just starting wrestling at that time.
Okay.
In fact, our football coach, Ron Tolliver, he bought a set of mats, and the first year, my older brother and I did some exhibition matches because we wrestled all our lives, just against each other. But that's when wrestling got started. When in my junior year, I finally got a wrestling coach.
Okay.
And I did very well in wrestling. I was the first person from Brandon to, I got second in the state. I lost my championship match 1-0.
Who do you think would win today if you and him had a wrestle off today? Who do you think would win?
I would.
I got my money on it.
No, he got an escape on me, and I took him down 5 times the last 2 periods, and it was all just outside the ring. Should have been a point awarded to me for because he was stalling.
Yeah,
but that's what happens.
You've gotten over it, and you've gotten past it though now.
It's hard.
I would say, man, I always look up to folks that wrestle because I didn't, I never was involved in that. I played football and basketball.
Mm-hmm.
But man, that in the early days, I mean, was it a high school sport then, or
yes?
Okay,
yeah.
So there was a state tournament,
but there was no classes. It was all one class. Most of my competition were the Sioux Falls schools, and I enjoyed that. I loved that. Wrestling is an individual sport, and I love the fact that I could compete against everybody.
Yeah.
Now there's I don't know, 3-4 champions in each weight class now in the state. And back then there was only one.
Sure.
So I like that part of it.
Yeah, that's a, we've created these classes in different sizes, but back in your time to have truly a state champion.
Yeah.
What weight did you wrestle at?
I started out at 154 as a freshman. Then I went to 180 as a junior. Then I was a heavyweight as a senior.
Okay.
But I only weighed 210, so I wasn't huge as a heavyweight, but I wrestled a lot of guys who were 300 and that type thing. But I like that part of it too.
Yeah, I bet. I'm sure they loved it too. So that would have been in those days. You had played Washington High School, O'Gorman.
Yep.
What were the other schools that were really competitive in wrestling?
Washington, Lincoln, O'Gorman, and Beersford usually had a good team. Lennox had a really good team. Those were probably the key ones.
Sure. Well, and then football. So you played, 11-man football.
Yep.
How many classes were there in football at that time?
I don't remember there being anything but the one class.
Okay.
But we didn't have a state championship then. There was no state championship.
So you just played schools?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Biggest rivalry was Garrettson.
Okay.
At that time, in fact, my first coach, Ron Tolliver, he ended up getting fired because the Garrettson game was always a huge rivalry, and he ended up getting a fight with a fan from Garrettson, and it was a big deal.
Was that after the game or
during
the game? Oh my goodness!
Yeah, he was being harassed by this guy, and he dropped him.
Oh wow! Wow. So at that time, was it pretty competitive back and forth, or did one team have an advantage over the other? Or?
It was very competitive back and forth. Okay. I don't remember that we were dominant or that they were dominant. They were always very good games. I don't remember the scores, but it was very competitive.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's interesting how the things that we do remember, those rivalries. So you obviously were very successful in wrestling. Did you do any other sports besides wrestling and football?
Those were the main things. I participated in track because I had to. I didn't
Sure.
enjoy track, but those were the keys: is football and wrestling. Coaches wanted me to wrestle in college, but I was very involved with the football, and I didn't wrestle in college.
So what did you do for training? I mean, was there any lifting you did or running or what kind of?
I'm a fanatic when it comes to working out. Okay. I probably work myself harder than any coach would. In high school and college, the really good weight machines weren't there. Mm-hmm. And I had a problem with losing flexibility when I was lifting. And so in college, I was doing some lifting there, and I lost a lot of flexibility. And the coaches said, "You got the strength, don't just back off on it." After college, I got involved with a program called Nautilus. And that's equipment that the Miami Dolphins were using big time back then. And the guy that was running Nautilus at the time he had actually worked as a trainer for the Dolphins.
Okay.
And I got very involved with that and developed more strength and more flexibility doing that program. And worked very well for me. I left college about 2:30, and I was able to get up to 255 before I went into the pros. And there was no fat there.
You were at 255 pounds of ripped quarterbacks, head off Russell, Nelson, just get it done there. Yeah. So you were at Northern State then for 4 years then?
Yep.
Okay. And you played, what position did you play?
I was defensive tackle.
Defensive tackle, okay.
And we did extremely well. At that time, Northern was kind of a sports dynasty. The year I went up there, they got every all-stater in the state of South Dakota went there. We went to the nationals in football, basketball, wrestling, track, everything, baseball, and did very well. And we were kind of a sports dynasty. And back then it was in '69, my freshman year, we beat Concordia, who had beat South Dakota State, Augie, and everything. And there was a lot of talk that we could beat SDSU.
Oh, sure.
I mean, on one given day, maybe we could have, but we probably couldn't do it. We didn't have the depth to do it all the time.
Sure.
So, but we did very well. We went, in my freshman year, we went undefeated. And the NAI, for some reason, decided it wasn't our turn to go to the Nationals, so they sent somebody else instead of us.
Oh, wow.
Team we'd beaten. And that was pretty disheartening.
Mm.
But then my junior year, we went to the Nationals again. So,
so that would be in the day when playoffs were bid. Then it wasn't some committee somewhere, or there probably was a committee, but didn't teams bid for playoff?
At the NAI level, I don't think so.
Okay.
Because the year we didn't get to go, we could have gone and played in some bowl games. But our coach at the time says we're not doing that.
Okay.
And we had a great coach in college. He was just phenomenal. Jim Kretschmann. He was just absolutely phenomenal coach. And I give him credit for the way most of my life has gone, really.
Huh.
So,
wow.
Great coach.
Had an impact on you.
Yes. Yeah.
So that would have been like the early 70s then?
Yeah, that would have been season 69 through 72.
69, okay. And then how did that go from when you were done at Northern, you graduated?
Mm-hmm.
This was, what we see today now with these name, image, and likeness and guys making money on their stuff.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the draft and what it is, ESPN. I mean, what was it like waiting after college with the hope to play professionally? What was that like?
I loved playing football so much that the thought of not playing was very difficult for me. I had a good friend by the name of Bob Warwick that he was a year ahead of me. He had found this team, the Manitowoc County Chiefs, and said, hey, let's just go play for them. And we did that, and that was good, but it's probably some of the roughest football I played because the refereeing wasn't very good, and they'd send the whole team after you to try and take you out. They'd send like 4 or 5 guys after you, and they try and stand you up and take your knees out and stuff like that. And it was rough football, but it was good. And then Green Bay, like I said, bought my contract from them.
So did you get a phone call from somebody, or did you have an agent, or how did that happen?
No, I didn't have an agent. That was probably a mistake, but I did not have an agent. The two teams worked with each other.
Okay.
And they came and told me that the scouts were there to look at me one day, and after that, they said, well, you're going to Green Bay. And that was very good. It was, like I said, walking into the Green Bay Packers locker room and stuff, it was just absolutely phenomenal. And being part of that organization was unbelievable. But
who are some of your contemporaries that you were in a locker room with that some of us might know? I mean, were there names that we would know of?
Good question. I really didn't care who I was there with. I was bad that way. I didn't care who was there. I didn't care who I played, and I didn't care who was on the team. But I just loved playing the game.
Yeah. That probably made you effective.
Yeah, I was a pretty intense player. I back then you could use a forearm shiver, and I probably had one of the most damaging forearm shivers that you could have. But then you could use head slaps and stuff like that. They're all illegal now. But it was good black and blue football back then.
Sure. When you you got to play in 6 games, you said earlier, right?
Yeah. First game was with Chicago, and that was at Lambeau Field. And very heavy rain. In fact, it was raining so hard the drains on the field couldn't handle it. So if you tackled somebody along the sidelines, you're in danger of drowning.
It was a puddle, huh?
But I first game I played for him, I played a very good game. I had 2 sacks, caused 1 fumble, and recovered a fumble. And I made a huge mistake when I was at Green Bay. They asked me to play special teams, and then I told them no. I shouldn't have done that. That's how you make it in the pros, is to agree to play special teams and that type of thing. And I should have done that, but I didn't, and that was a big mistake. So, but it was like I said, I started out playing some really good football for them, and after that, they kind of decided they didn't want me there, I guess. So it was weird.
So you did good. You had success.
Yeah.
And yet because they couldn't really basically tell you what to do.
Well, yeah, and it's they pro sports are controlled by investments, I think. Sure. You know, how much they invested in you and that type of thing. It's there's a lot of politics. It's like I said, I didn't have an agent and that type of thing. I was too proud to do that, I guess. But there's a lot that goes with it, who they decide to keep and who they don't. Played with a guy by the name of David Purefoy. He was a defensive tackle, same as me. He was considered the fastest lineman in football at the time. And he ended up going to New York, and I think he played with them for quite some time. And Newark, and he was good, but he was the type of individual that he didn't read. He just had his stunts or whatever to do, and once in a while make a spectacular play. Sometimes he'd take himself out of the plays, and
sure.
So it was, it's hard to say.
It's amazing the talent that you see, even, obviously today, but the talent that a football team can draw, the physical talent and the ability to do things. Last night, as we're, watching this, it would have been, several weeks ago, but I played at North Dakota State.
Okay.
North Dakota State had a receiver drafted named Christian Watson.
Okay.
He's playing for the Packers.
Okay.
And he played a game. They were playing the Cowboys at Lambeau. He caught 3 touchdown passes. After his first touchdown pass, he caught it and did a backflip in the end zone.
I think I saw that.
I mean, first of all, it's like catching a touchdown pass in the NFL is something.
Yeah.
But then in full pads, do a backflip.
Yeah, and he's not a small guy.
No, he's 6'2" or 3 or whatever he is. But man, I think of the impressive. I have a friend of mine who played at Southern Methodist University in the days of the death penalty and the Pony Express, and he said he'd sit there, and Jerry Ball, who played for the Vikings, was at SMU, and they would sit there on the bench, knee to knee, the bench between them, and they would sit there and they'd punch each other as hard as they could in the stomach.
Oh yeah, yeah. We used to do that at parties.
I mean, whoa. We're interesting. We were talking with a guest earlier, about the how things have changed over the years.
Yeah,
and that probably wouldn't happen today.
No. It's. I can remember in college, I had a a linebacker that I played with that he had a bad shoulder, but every once in a while he'd come over to me and he'd go, "Randy, grab my hand. And we'd put his shoulder back in out on the field, never left the field. And that happened a lot. And you didn't see people laying on the field, having the trainers come out and check them. If they were hurt bad, they got themselves off the field, but nobody laid there.
So Randy, tell us a little bit now. Now you live, and I think I think I know where you live, but you live in Brandon.
Yes, we're just barely in the city of Brandon.
Okay.
We built a house that overlooks the Split Rock Creek, and one side's in the county and the other side's in the city.
Okay.
But
so you got one foot in each municipality there.
Kind of got the best of both worlds there. We built a very unique house there, and we've enjoyed it a lot, and built it so that we can live there in our old age and stuff. So it's and that's I retired about 10 years ago, and we decided we were going to give our kids a boost, and our son lives out in Casper, Wyoming. We built a shop and house for him, set him up with 27 acres out there, and that was very good. Our daughter was living in Seattle at the time. We went out and remodeled her house and stuff for her. And then a couple years ago, I guess we got a little bit bored, and our church decided they wanted to build an outdoor pavilion, Beaver Valley Lutheran over there. And wife and I did most of the work to build that. And now we're involved with the tornado damage over there. So it's
Give us an update on that. I know a lot of people listening are curious to know how that's going, because that was pretty traumatic.
It was. It's right now, all the damaged materials have been removed from the building. There's in the education area, there's some walls that really need to be refurbished, and then the roofs need to be put back on. Other than that, a lot of the walls are going to stay. But we're looking at over a year to get it rebuilt. They're just ordering some of the materials are just a long delivery time. So it's a very slow process. It took quite a while with insurance in the beginning and stuff, and it's been a slow process. And it's hard for the members of the church. We've Brandon Lutheran was very generous, let us have services in there for quite a while. We still have an office in there. Boom Funeral gave us access to their facility. We use that on Sundays and have meetings in there every once in a while. The community's been very, very good to us, so it's good.
Well, we'll definitely, be, that was such a, I'm so thankful that no one was hurt.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of memories in that building, and that property is, historic. It's a historic place, and so
that's one thing that was really good is the old sanctuary. That really wasn't damaged at all. That survived very well. It was all the stuff that was built from 65 or 68 on. That was all damaged.
Yeah. Well, we're a part of a community. What do you feel is the strength of the Brandon community? I think there's a lot of things that happen in Brandon. A lot of things are going. We're experiencing what many people would call growing pains.
Yes. Yeah. I've been part of that too. We have property that's up on Redwood Boulevard, and that's a extremely busy gravel road.
Sure.
And right now the city is struggling, trying to figure out how to bring that into the city and pave it and that type of thing in a way that's affordable to them and to people that own property on there. With us, we own about 1/8 of a mile along that road on one side, and they were going to charge us $300,000 for our share of the road. And that's just not possible. And
Right.
we were able to stop that forced annexation and that type of thing at that time. But it's got some real growing pains. They are struggling to have enough money to keep things going the way they should. Brandon is. They built a new water tower up on our property, and that's a very good thing because right now they're struggling to meet insurance guidelines so that they have enough water and stuff for fire and that type thing. And that'll probably come online midsummer of next year. So they're making progress, but they're struggling.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, it's you think about how fast Brandon has grown. When I moved to Brandon 7 years ago, one of the things that most surprised me was that Brandon only has been incorporated as a city for 45 years.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, 74. I mean,
Yeah.
you were graduated. You'd already been through the Packers before Brandon became a town.
Yeah.
So I think I like to remind people, and I have, do this time to time. We're still figuring things out.
Yeah.
We're still a young community. People have lived here for a long time, but the things that go along with being, I mean, if not the fastest growing, certainly one of the fastest growing communities in the state.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now with the advent of the internet and people tuning in during COVID, I mean, as a pastor, I mean, 9 out of 10 people that come to our church, new people, they moved from 2 to 3 states away.
Oh, yeah.
Tons of new people, not just new to our church. I mean, they're new to town.
Yes.
From Minnesota to Wyoming to Tennessee. I mean,
Well, we've got a cabin out in the Black Hills too, and out there, it is way worse than here as far as people coming in and that type of thing. And the property out there is increased in value so much that it's actually making it difficult for the locals and that type of thing to be able to hold on to their land. And that's kind of sad, really. They've worked hard and may not have the high income of the people coming in, but just about all of them coming in are from Colorado, Minnesota, everywhere, and Washington State, and it's changed the dynamics of the hills a lot. Yeah. So, and it's doing a lot of that here too. Yeah. It's we did some good things here during COVID. Governor Noem did some great things here, and people noticed. Mm-hmm. I mean, we'll go have dinner somewhere, and out-of-state people, and they'll go, "We love your governor." It's a cool thing. So,
yeah, I have a friend that says the same thing. We love your governor. I was like, okay. Well, I tell you what, I appreciate, Randy, you being here, and we certainly, in the few minutes we have to talk here, we could probably talk for hours. So we'll have to have you come back, and I appreciate your sharing your stories and being a part of our community. So
cool.
Thanks for sharing your story, and we'll see you around.
You bet. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us on the Love Your Neighbor podcast. The purpose of the Love Your Neighbor podcast is to build community one conversation at a time. You can help us build that community by sharing the podcast on your social media channels and rating our podcast on whatever platform you're listening from. Another way is to let us know of any neighbors who have a story. Go Leaks!